Welcome to Preservation Oaks, the podcast where we invite you to step away from the bustle of everyday life. Settle in and relax, and take a moment to leave the familiar behind as we explore the hidden gems of America that preserve our cultural past. We call them our Preservation Oaks, and with each episode, we'll journey to a different corner of the country, where we'll discover the unique histories, landscapes, and communities that make up our nation. We'll visit with local museums, historical and genealogical societies. They are the stewards of these stories. They preserve the legacy of each place like precious pieces of fabric in a quilt that binds the freedom-loving, hardworking people in this country together. So, slow down, grab a beverage, open your mind, and let us take you on a tour of the fascinating histories and heartfelt traditions that lie just beyond the horizon. This is Preservation Oaks, where every story is a stitch in the fabric of our shared culture. Now, join our host, Sean Radcliff, as he uncovers another thread in the tapestry of America's heritage and what it takes to preserve it.
Hey everybody, welcome to Preservation Oaks, the program where we celebrate the people and organizations preserving our nation's history, heritage, and culture. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff. Today's episode is all about something anyone can do, whether you're a professional genealogist or a curious grandchild, conducting oral interviews. These conversations capture voices, emotions, and experiences that documents alone simply can't. They transform family history into living history. This episode of Preservation Oaks gives you the tools to become a guardian of memory. By learning how to conduct oral interviews, you'll discover how to preserve voices, emotions, and life stories in ways that no census record or diary could ever capture. I'm coming to you from beautiful Salt Lake City, and today I'll not only walk you through how to prepare, what to ask, and how to preserve these priceless stories, but I'll also share with you a list of 215 sample questions you can download and use right away. You'll be equipped to start meaningful conversations with your loved ones or community elders today. These interviews don't just safeguard the past. They build a bridge between generations, ensuring that the wisdom, laughter, and lessons of those who came before us live on for the future. This is Preservation Oaks. Ask, listen, remember, the art of oral interviews. Now let's get into it. So let's talk about how to prepare for the interview. First, pick a comfortable, quiet place. It should be somewhere where your guest feels relaxed and at ease. Next, use reliable recording tools. Your phone is fine, but always back up your files. Remember, if you lose the recording, you may not get another chance. Sometimes the person being interviewed may not be here tomorrow. Be upfront about what to expect. Share some topics in advance to ease nerves. Now, the list of 215 sample questions we're providing is a fantastic starting point, but it isn't one size fits all. For example, there are no detailed military questions in the list. If your guest served in the Navy, the Coast Guard, Army, Air Force, Space Force, or Marines, you'll want to create tailored questions about their service. The same goes for career-specific paths, like somebody who spent their life as a teacher, a nurse, or even the town's gravedigger. So use the list as a framework and add your own questions as needed. Remember, the real objective of an oral interview is to capture a person's life story in their own words, their memories, their experiences, and their perspectives, so that future generations can understand not just what they did, but who they were. Props can help spark stories too. Photos, letters, or heirlooms can open doors you never expected. And here's a tip. Develop your own style. Be kind, be respectful, and be mindful of time. It may be better to schedule multiple shorter sessions instead of one marathon session. Older interviewees especially may tire easily or feel embarrassed if they can't recall every detail. That's okay. be patient. Time blurs details, but the essence of a memory is what matters. Finally, always ask permission before hitting record. It sets the tone of respect and trust. And remember, this is a conversation, not an interrogation. I always get anxious with oral interviews because they're so precious, and I feel so honored to do them. I recall one I did where I hadn't prepared enough. I fumbled because I was not aware of the guest's background. I was documenting the experiences of a World War II veteran. The gentleman named Tom had a rich history of service and stories to share. However, since I never served in World War II, I had no clue at all what Tom was relating about the key events and locations from his service period. Tom starts recounting a pivotal battle where he was stationed, but since I wasn't familiar enough, I failed to ask informed questions about the specific challenges or historical significance of that event. As a result, the interview missed out on capturing the nuanced details and personal insights that would make Tom's story a more valuable addition to the historical record. Tom didn't seem to notice, but I wouldn't blame him for being a bit frustrated, thinking, "Sheesh, this kid doesn't even know the basics of what I went through." So what I learned to do was a pre-interview session where I spoke with the guests to get more familiar with some of the milestones in their life. I also tried to speak with the family to get their perspective on the oral interview. Are there things they'd like me to focus on because, quote, "Dad just never talks about his military service with us, and we'd really like to know," unquote. Then I go off and do a bit of sleuthing to get some context and familiarize myself a bit more. It's important to do thorough preparation to ensure that the interviewee's experiences are captured with the depth and accuracy they deserve. Obviously, you weren't in World War II, and so you're never going to be as familiar with everything as the interviewee. You can't be expected to be, but taking a bit of time up front sure helps, and it's also a good time to run across some of the props you might want to use during the interview, such as pictures or keepsakes or things like that. Remember the old saying, measure twice and cut once. Sure applies here. Now let's move into best practices for asking questions. First, you want to ask open-ended questions. These are designed to invite full, meaningful answers rather than just a yes or no. They often begin with what, how, why, tell me about, or describe. For example, instead of asking, "Did you like school?" you could ask, "What was school like for you? Who were your favorite teachers? What subjects stuck with you?" Open-ended questions spark stories, emotions, and insights. Closed questions limit answers to short facts. Second, be comfortable with silence. Sometimes your guest needs a moment to recall a memory or to shape how they want to tell it. Don't rush in. That silence is often where the best stories take shape. Third, follow the threads of the conversation naturally. Guests often drop little details that can lead to great discoveries. For example, you might ask, "What was your childhood home like?" And they reply, "It was small, but my dad built it himself after the war." Right there, you've got a golden thread. Instead of jumping to your next question like, "Did your family have pets?" follow up with, "Wow, can you tell me more about how your dad built the house? Did he have help?" That's where rich, unexpected stories live. Following threads means listening closely, seizing on details, and letting your guests guide you into unplanned but powerful territory. And finally, be prepared for surprises. Your guest's life may be very different from your own. They live through events, traditions, and everyday realities that may no longer exist. I'll share two examples. First, I once asked a guest, "What do you remember about your childhood home?" Now, instead of describing the furniture or the land, they spoke about the smell of bread baking in the kitchen every morning. That small detail painted a vivid picture of love and warmth. Now, that's the power of asking, listening, and following the story where it wants to go. The last example is an example of how different generations might remember the same event, such as the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, differently. For the baby boomer generation, the fall of the Berlin Wall was a defining moment in history that marked the end of the Cold War and the beginning of a new era. They might remember it as a time of hope and optimism, with vivid memories of watching the news coverage of people tearing down the wall and celebrating their newfound freedom. They may also recall the political and social tensions of the time, including why the wall was constructed in the first place, and the role of Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in the negotiations that led to the wall's demise. Their perspective is often shaped by their experiences of living through the Cold War and the significant global changes that followed. In contrast, Generation X, who were younger during the event, might remember it as a time of confusion and uncertainty. They might recall the sudden shift in global politics and the impact it had on their families, especially if they had relatives in Eastern Europe. Their memories might include the confusion over the rapid changes in international relations and the mixed emotions of seeing the wall fall, while also grappling with the uncertainties of a changing world. They might also remember the event as a backdrop to their own personal growth and coming-of-age experiences. For millennials, the fall of the Berlin Wall is often remembered as a historical event they learned about in school rather than a lived experience. They might recall studying the event in history class, learning about its significance in the context of the end of the Cold War and the reunification of Germany. Their understanding is often shaped by academic sources and the narratives presented in textbooks, which may not capture the same emotional intensity as those who witnessed it firsthand. So, history and perspective are everything, eh? All right, onward and upward. Let's take a look at the categories on the downloadable list of sample questions. First category is early life and childhood, and a sample question is, what's your earliest memory? Then we go into family background, and the sample question is, were there storytellers in your family? We go into education and work. What was your first job? We go into marriage and family life. How did you meet your spouse or partner? We go into community and home. What did you miss about your old neighborhood? We go into historical events. Do you remember where you were when the moon landing happened? We go into culture and leisure. What music defined your youth? We go into beliefs and values. Did your beliefs change over time? We go into later life and reflections. What wisdom do you want to pass on to your grandchildren? We go into daily life details. What was a typical day like for you as a child? We go into technology and change. Sample question is, do you remember your first car, your first computer? And then finally, we go into closing and legacy. If you could tell the world one thing, what would it be? Now together, these categories guide you through the full arc of a life, from the first memories to the final reflections. This is where the magic happens. The categories give you a roadmap. They're the hidden treasures waiting to be discovered.
Is this all that you have to remind you of the fun of last Christmas? Ornaments, gift paper, ribbons, and bows? Well, this year, with a Brownie movie camera, you can save the truly wonderful things of Christmas. The rapture on the face of a child seeing his first Christmas tree. The excitement of a boy getting the one thing he wished for most. All the love, happiness, and joy of Christmas. Yours to enjoy again and again in beautiful big screen movies. You'll get all the action and color with a Brownie movie camera. And now you can have both the camera and the new easy-to-use Brownie 8 projector in this complete outfit for $78.25 or as little as $8 down. This week, visit a store that displays this sign. Give a Brownie movie camera so your family can take movies and make this the best Christmas they'll ever remember.
Univac, the giant electronic brain made only by Remington Rand, takes business statistics from magnetic tape.
letters, numbers, and punctuation marks, processing them through its electronic circuits at phenomenal speeds. UNIVAC can compute payrolls electronically, then produce printed checks in a flash. Over 8,000 checks an hour with this high-speed printer. UNIVAC leads the field of electronic computing.
Hey, history lovers. Your family's story is epic. But if you don't hit record, who's going to tell it? Whether it's your grandpa's first job, your aunt's civil rights march, or the time your family moved across the country with nothing but a suitcase, it's history, and it deserves to be heard. Start by sitting down with the storytellers in your life. Ask questions. Listen. Use your phone. Record the moment. These stories can't be Googled. Once they're gone, they're gone. Not sure where to start? Visit StoryCorps.org for easy tips and sample questions to get your first interview rolling. Be the one who saves the story. The Family Archivist.
This message was brought to you by Preservation Oaks, because your voice matters, and your history does too.
Captain, our computer is picking up a strange signal. Here, sir, you better take a look at it.
You're listening to MicroStream Radio in Preservation Oaks, the world's only program communicating the value of museums, historical and genealogical societies across the USA. The most interesting show on the planet.
Well, there you are. Welcome back. Let's get going. We're so glad you're back. Welcome. Now, on with the program.
Now let's discuss how to handle sensitive topics. This is something every oral interviewer must be prepared for. There are moments in life that carry heavy emotional weight. The loss of a loved one, the pain of war, accidents, illness, discrimination, or struggles that may still feel raw after many years. These topics can surface suddenly, and as the interviewer, your role is to handle them with care. When a guest shares something painful, it's a privilege. It means they trust you enough to let their guard down. That trust deserves your full respect. Here are some best practices. Let the storyteller set the pace. Allow silence. Often those quiet moments lead to the deepest reflections. Show empathy without taking over. Simple acknowledgments like, "Thank you for sharing that," or "I can only imagine how hard that must have been," go a long way. Be willing to move on if they signal they don't want to continue. Offer reassurance. Let them know their honesty matters. Sometimes, after lighter topics, a guest may circle back to a painful memory on their own. Only go there if they choose to. And here are some quick do's and don'ts. Do allow silence, acknowledge courage, and respect boundaries. Don't push for details, interrupt, or compare their story to your own. It's not your own. When someone shares a painful memory, treat it with empathy, patience, and gratitude. Those moments, the cracked voice, the pause, the laughter through tears, are what make oral histories unforgettable. Conversations like these remind us that history isn't always easy, it's messy. But by listening fully, we honor the wholeness of a life, the joy, the sorrow, and everything in between. All right, onward to how we can preserve and share our interviews. What happens after an interview? First and foremost, save the recording in multiple formats and back it up. Don't keep it only on your phone. Use cloud storage or an external hard drive or both. Label the files clearly, name, date, and location. Add metadata like who, when, where, and the main topics covered. Then create a transcript. Transcriptions make interviews easier to search, quote, and share. They're also invaluable for people with hearing difficulties. And finally, share copies with family members, local genealogical societies, or historical archives. Your interview might be the only surviving record of someone's story. Imagine the impact of donating that to a local historical society, where it becomes part of the larger fabric of the community's history. Donating oral interviews to genealogical or historical societies can significantly contribute to building community history in several ways. Number one is preserving personal narrative. Oral interviews capture unique personal stories and perspectives that might not be found in written records. These narratives provide a rich, first-hand account of historical events of everyday life, adding depth and texture to the community's history. Number two, filling gaps in historical records. Official documents and historical texts often miss the personal, emotional, and cultural details that make history come alive. Oral interviews can fill these gaps, offering insights into the social, economic, and cultural aspects of a community's past that are not always captured in formal records. Number three is creating a sense of belonging. By sharing and preserving these stories, communities can foster a sense of belonging and connection among their members. People can see their own experiences reflected in the broader narrative of the community, strengthening their sense of identity and heritage. Number four is an educational resource. Oral interviews serve as valuable educational resources for students, researchers, and anyone interested in local history. They provide authentic primary sources that can be used to teach about the community's past, its challenges, and its achievements. Informing future generations is number five. These interviews ensure that the stories and experiences of older generations are passed down to younger ones. This intergenerational sharing of knowledge helps maintain a continuous connection to the community's history and its values. Number six is promoting cultural preservation. For communities with unique cultural traditions, oral interviews can document and preserve these practices, ensuring that they are not lost over time. This is particularly important for Indigenous, immigrant, and minority communities whose histories might otherwise be marginalized. Number seven is building community engagement. The process of collecting and sharing oral interviews can encourage community engagement and participation. It provides an opportunity for community members to reflect on their past, share their experiences, and contribute to a collective historical record. And finally, number eight is inspiring community initiatives. Listening to the stories of the past can inspire community initiatives and projects aimed at addressing current challenges or celebrating achievements. It can motivate people to take action based on the lessons learned from their community's history. By donating oral interviews, individuals contribute to a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of their community's history, ensuring that future generations have access to a rich, diverse, and authentic record of their shared past. All right, let's step back for a moment and remember why this work matters. Oral tradition predates written history. It's how humanity has always passed down knowledge. The human voice carries nuance that no document can. Pauses, laughter, sadness. Future generations won't just know their ancestors, they'll hear them. I recall reading an oral interview of an ancestor who fought in the U.S. Revolutionary War. It was in 1843, and he was an old man. The interview was with Captain Levi Preston. He expressed a somewhat indifferent attitude towards the specific causes of the Revolutionary War, mentioning issues like the Stamp Act and taxes on tea. But he did not seem to view them as the primary motivators for his participation in the conflict. Instead, he explained that the Americans fought in the Revolutionary War primarily to preserve their freedom, stating, "We always had been free, and we meant to be free always." He emphasized that the conflict was not driven by specific grievances like taxes, but rather a fundamental desire for self-governance. His perspective highlights that many colonists had varied and personal reasons for fighting, often rooted in a desire for liberty and self-defense against perceived aggression. Can you believe that we have this important conversation from our founding as a nation? And we have it only because someone asked and someone listened. This is why oral interviews matter. They breathe life into history. One of the most famous oral interview projects in the United States is StoryCorps. That's StoryCorps, and you can find them on the internet. StoryCorps has been recording the stories of Americans from all walks of life since 2003. It was inspired by the Federal Writers Project of the 1930s. StoryCorps aims to capture the diverse experiences and voices of the American people, archiving these interviews in the Library of Congress. The project has collected over 645,000 interviews across all 50 states and several U.S. territories, making it one of the largest oral history projects in the country. Another significant project is the Federal Writers Project, or FWP. It was part of the Works Progress Administration, the WPA, during the Great Depression. The FWP was tasked with collecting oral histories, including the slave narratives, which documented the first-hand accounts of more than 2,300 formerly enslaved people. These narratives provide invaluable insights into the experiences of African Americans during and after slavery, offering a unique perspective on a crucial period in U.S. history, and they're absolute gold, and often sad and chilling. The Civil Rights History Project, initiated by the Library of Congress, is another notable example. This project focuses on documenting the personal stories of individuals who participated in the civil rights movement, capturing their experiences and contributions to the struggle for racial equality in the United States. These projects highlight the importance of oral histories in preserving and understanding the diverse experiences and perspectives that shape American history. But these are not the only oral interview projects currently active in the United States. There are several other notable projects and initiatives that focus on collecting and preserving oral histories. For instance, there's the Voice of Witness organization that amplifies the stories of people impacted by and fighting against injustice. They work with communities to document and center unheard voices, teach ethics-driven storytelling, and develop educational resources. Additionally, the Oral History Association is involved in various projects, including exploring themes related to the American experience and the role of oral history in understanding the nation's past. The Southern Foodways Alliance also invites proposals for oral history projects focused on themes of food and culture in the southern United States. Furthermore, the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program at the University of Florida is engaged in global experimental learning initiatives dedicated to gathering, preserving, and promoting living history from individuals of diverse backgrounds. These examples are part of a broader landscape of oral history initiatives in the United States, each contributing uniquely to the preservation and understanding of American experiences. And what I'd like to see is an oral history project that focuses on the positive aspects of our founding and the positive aspects of life in America. And now a call to action. We've walked through the art of oral interviews. We've covered why they matter, how to prepare, what to ask, how to handle sensitive topics, and how to preserve and share them. And now you have access to a master list of 215 questions, from childhood memories to reflections on later life. So here's my challenge to you. Within the next week, schedule one interview with a family member or community elder. Bring your curiosity, your respect, and your listening heart. Because when we preserve these voices, we honor not just the past, but the future. Remember, history preserved is history honored. I hope this episode helps you with your own oral interviews. Please feel free to download the free sample questions. There are 215 of them. The link is in the description. If today's episode sparked new ideas, helped you tackle this in a better way, or simply inspired you to conduct your own oral interviews, I hope you'll reach out and let us know. You can send comments or questions anytime to preservationoaks@gmail.com. As always, thank you for listening to Preservation Oaks. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who love history and family stories. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep documenting what matters, and most importantly, keep preserving those precious family memories. Now onward to our next episode of Preservation Oaks. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, Score Wizards, Waiterman, and Scott Holmes. Hey, this is Sean Radcliff. See you all next time on Preservation Oaks. And until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.
Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, reproduced, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Preservation Oaks starring Sean Radcliff originates in Salt Lake City, Utah. Be sure to join us for our next episode on your favorite podcast platform. This is Matthew Adams speaking. Preservation Oaks has come to you through the worldwide podcast platform Podbean, and our home is preservationoaks.podbean.com. Hopefully you found today's episode useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If so, please follow, comment, or subscribe. Remember that being free means being free to be curious, and that historical and genealogical societies and museums allow us to discover the past, be free to explore where curiosity opens every door. Thanks to everyone for listening. Stay cozy, curious, and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. Remember to cherish and support the preservation of history in your own communities. The content of this program is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Some material included in this program may be copyrighted by third parties. However, under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act, the doctrine of fair use allows the limited use of copyrighted material without requiring permission from the rights holders when used for purposes such as education, criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. These uses are legally permitted even if they might otherwise constitute infringement. If you wish to use copyrighted material from this program for purposes beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner. If you believe your copyrighted material has been used in this program in a way that does not qualify as fair use, please contact us at Preservation Oaks at gmail.com. Thank you.